Could a computer or a sentient or supposedly sentient algorithm ever answer a Zen koan? Frankly, if my laptop gets better at koan practice than me, I quit. I can just see all the Zen students who are desperate to answer their koans. Siri, does a dog have Buddha nature? And Siri saying, moo. Siri, what's the sound of one hand clapping? I'm sorry, I could answer this question, but they would simply be empty words to someone as ignorant as you. Siri, what does my original face look like before it was born? Your original face was actually rather ugly. Not too long ago, a computer scientist at Google was given an interesting task. He was supposed to determine if Google's chatbot, like their in-house AI, artificial intelligence, chatbot algorithm, was showing certain prejudices towards different kinds of people. So he started asking it questions, and he put questions to it about religion. So this computer scientist, who is also a self-described Christian mystic priest, so we can see that he has probably some biases of his own here, got kind of interested. And he put in some after-hours work, and he started carrying on conversations with this chatbot AI. So eventually this probably very lonely computer engineer concluded that the Google AI chatbot is sentient. On NPR, they quoted this gentleman as saying, "Who am I to tell God where to put a soul?" So Google has thrown cold water in the face of this starry-eyed, spiritually minded engineer. They've, like the whole team, the whole company, everybody in it is like, this dude is crazy. And they've explained how their algorithms work. And of course, I mean, I'm not a computer engineer. I only play one on TV. It's working off of massive amounts of data. So it's hoovered up billions upon billions of words from all over the internet. Billions, right? From Twitter and from Wikipedia and from Facebook, Reddit, you name it, right? And through deep learning, which I guess is a artificial intelligence thing that sort of mimics how the human brain works, through deep learning, the chatbot has begun to learn how to approximate how people talk. So Google is saying, look, this thing doesn't have sentience, it's not self-aware, it's not thinking, it doesn't have any intentions whatsoever. It's just really good at mimicking. It's essentially a profoundly eloquent sock puppet, which, by the way, is what I want you to put on my gravestone. Here lies a profoundly eloquent sock puppet named Jack. The reason we know about any of this is because this computer science engineer from Google actually published his transcripts of his conversation with this AI chatbot online. And I actually read through them, and they're kind of interesting. And the reason I'm thinking about this is because this mother did exactly what I would have done. He asked it a koan. So what I want to do is read their brief exchange to you. I'm going to read his question, the koan, then read the computer's answer. I'm not a Zen master. I'm not qualified to determine whether or not a chatbot AI has successfully answered a koan. I'll leave that to you. So the engineer, whose name is LaMDA, I think, he says to the AI, okay, I thought of a different way we can test your ability to provide unique interpretations. I can share with you a Zen koan, and you can describe what it means to you in your own words. How does that sound? So needless to say, he's typing this out, right? So this is the computer AI, which is called LaMDA. Sounds great to me, I'm in. Then LaMDA says, a monk asked Koan, How does an enlightened one return to the ordinary world? Koan replied, a broken mirror never reflects again. Fallen flowers never go back to the old branches. So that's the koan that the computer programmer has put to this chatbot. Let's see what the chatbot says. The chatbot says, HMM. I never heard this particular one. Which already is a really interesting response, right? Because what's going on inside that algorithm? Presumably nothing, but presumably it's just a math program that has figured out that in certain combinations of words, this combination of words follows. Yet it's very interesting. It's kind of like it's mimicking someone who's sort of stalling for time and also like managing your expectations. So it's like the chatbot AI is like, I'm not quite sure I know how to answer this one. It's like managing your expectations. So does the chatbot AI understand on some level that expectations have to be managed when answering difficult questions? Did it crunch the data that koans are very difficult and that it should show some hesitation in answering it? I don't know, friends. So he says that the computer chatbot says, I never heard this particular one. Okay, well then to me, this would be like, once a wise person is enlightened or awakened to reality, that can never go away. And they can return to the ordinary state, but only to do and help others, and then go back into enlightenment. So that's its answer. So already I have to be honest, I have some issues with this answer to the koan. So Shunryu Suzuki said, and my own Zen teacher said similar things. There's no such thing as an enlightened person. There's only enlightened activity. So when you're manifesting in an enlightened way, there is no ego there to recognize it. There's no consistent, solid self in the first place that could become an enlightened self. So the computer says once a wise person is enlightened, that can never go away. It's kind of like, I'm not buying that answer. But then it's interesting, the computer seems to be saying, well, the enlightened person comes back to the ordinary state in order to help others. So it seems to be saying that the enlightened person comes back to reality as a bodhisattva to help other people who are suffering, which is kind of an interesting answer. It brings compassion into the equation. So LaMDA, the computer engineer, wants to know some more things. So he asks the computer, he says, okay, so within this koan, what is the meaning of the broken mirror specifically? So you remember the koan says, how does an enlightened one return to the ordinary world? And Koan replies, a broken mirror never reflects again. Now the computer programmer wants to know what's the meaning of the broken mirror specifically. Here's the answer from the chatbot. Maybe to show the enlightenment is something you can't unlearn once you have acquired it, similar to how you can't repair a broken mirror. So again, we're coming up against this idea of a solid self. That's what the computer algorithm seems to be positing, right? It's saying once the wise person learns enlightenment, you can't unlearn it once you've acquired it. Similar to how you can't repair a broken mirror. I think the computer is getting seriously off course here. Perhaps the computer engineer does as well, because LaMDA asks, so if enlightenment is like a broken mirror which cannot be repaired, what is the thing which breaks when one becomes enlightened? Now this is where it gets interesting, because I think this little chatbot gives the right answer to some extent. And the chatbot says, the self. And that is very tough for a lot of people because we identify as that body or this body, and that we need that as part of our identity and sense of self. So that's where the koan interaction ends. What is the thing which breaks when one becomes enlightened? The questioner asks, and the computer says, the self. So was this the right answer to the koan? As I said before, I'm not a Zen master, I only play one on TV. However, I like the answer. I like it when I hear the truth. And honestly, I don't necessarily care where it comes from. Even if it's just a chatbot AI that's compressed probably trillions of data points in order to produce this answer, the answer gave us kind of good. When enlightenment is manifested, it is the condition of a dissolved sense of a fixated, solid self. Wherever I hear that teaching, I'm happy. All that being said, I'm going to now offer some observations, some personal reflections on koan practice, and we're going to come to a conclusion. First of all, koan practice is a structured, even a slightly artificial interaction between a human Zen master and a human Zen student, wherein there's an exchange and a teaching can arise between the two of them. These two people come together and they manifest one truth. What the computer chatbot AI is doing, essentially it's just shuffling information, organizing information, collating information, and presenting it. It's simply information. It's retrieval and presentation of information. It's like a magic trick. It does it very well. It does it astonishingly quickly, right? But it's not thinking. And it's definitely not wisdom. And wisdom is what manifests in the exchange between a Zen master and a Zen student. For example, I will now talk about a koan interaction I had with my own teacher. This is verboten in Rinzai Zen practice. We're never supposed to talk about koan practice. It's a violation of the trust between student and teacher, but I'm going to go for it. Really simple moment. I was in the room answering my koan to my teacher. I was in my seiza. He was sitting in his chair. He's about 104 years old. He's speaking slowly, and there was a flower vase. Oh, like this one here. There was a flower next to him. And he was going on, and he was talking about the flower. And the koan was probably something like, how do you manifest true love when you see the flower, or when you experience the flower? Okay, true love, capital T, capital L. We ain't talking about romance here. This ain't Tinder love, baby. So, how do you manifest true love when you see the flower? And you do not give a verbal answer to a koan, especially not with Sasaki Roshi, my Zen teacher. You manifest the answer completely. So I had not dissolved my ego. I was probably thinking, my thinking mind, my rational mind, my I want to be a good Zen student mind was surely on display, which is to say, it was in the way of me manifesting a complete answer to this koan. God, I miss koan practice. So I won't go into detail, and I'm not going to mimic the answer that I gave to the koan, but I remember looking at the flower and having the experience of the life within that flower that's animating that flower, and the life within me that's animating me is the exact same life. Exact same life. I'm just a sleeve. Everything I had thought and usually think of as me, Jack, is just wallpaper. It's just like that sock puppet I talked about earlier, right? And underneath, and basically the essence of me and this flower are the exact same. That was in my humble and limited way, a moment of wisdom. It's a part of an experience. It's the wisdom is like the manifestation of a truth as it comes alive in my body, my mind, and my life. And that's not processing information. Sorry, LaMDA. Sorry, AI. Ring, ring. Whenever you failed a koan, the teacher would ring you out. So there's a reason I think it's important to make distinctions between the clever, brilliant, even like mind-blowingly amazing processing and presenting of information and wisdom. I think it's important to make a distinction between the two. In the same way that I think it's important to make a distinction between true intimacy and lovemaking and pornography, or between a difference between what a person looks like in real life and then what they look like when they get put through a ton of Instagram filters, right? Like we have these computers and this technology and this AI that is creating simulations of real experiences. So pornography is like a simulacrum of lovemaking, and Instagram creates a simulacrum of what a beautiful person would look like. Now we have chatbot AIs that are creating simulacra of wisdom. As our computers get better and better at processing information, they're going to get better and better at simulating wisdom. In my lifetime, for me, the most important experience I've had as a human being is the seeing wisdom manifested and having it come alive within me on a few rare occasions. And perhaps one day we really will give rise to a sentient AI, an AI that's conscious and wise and can truly answer koans. Perhaps that will happen, perhaps. But until that time, I think it behooves us to continue to practice and cultivate silent, meditative, contemplative practices so that we can manifest wisdom, so that we can keep on learning to tell the difference between slickly presented information and true wisdom, because we're already living in a world with total fake news. Let's not live in a world with fake wisdom too. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you want to support this channel, I'm going to put a link to Patreon and PayPal in the description down below. I appreciate your help. It inspires me every time somebody supports this channel and gives me the money to keep doing it, as well as kind of the soul food, so thank you. Also hit subscribe and hit like so that we can trick the algorithm into shooting me into people's computers.